Hi everyone, this is Dr. Lynn Patrick. This recording is an interview that was done live by Tom Malterre interviewing David Quig about the new toxic metals thallium and cesium, what problems they cause in patients and how those problems can be addressed. Now, this is probably one of the more compelling interviews and lectures that I've seen Dr. Quig give in my 20 years of knowing him. And if you're interested in more content like this, just go to the environmentalhealthsymposium.com, click on the videos, and you can see more really fascinating lectures. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, Tom Malterre here, media correspondent for the Environmental Health Symposium. And we just had on stage Dr. David Quig, which was a fantastic honor, and he actually won the Atlas Award for his services. Now, Dr. Quig, if you don't know him, everybody knows you, by the way, but if you don't know Dr. Quig, my gosh, let's see, you started bachelor's, master's in nutritional sciences from Virginia Tech, I believe it was, right? And then you went on to study a PhD, and that was University of Illinois. And then you went on, and what did you do? You did the research at Cornell University for a while.
Yeah, fortunately, instead of just being a postdoc, I actually had a research associate position.
Oh, wow.
And worked with one of the most prolific researchers in history, the guy that actually discovered how fat was absorbed chylomicrons in dogs. This guy had over 350 publications, and despite being able to do basically unlimited research because his NIH funding was just huge. Phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah.
The greatest thing that I learned from that wise old man was about how to think.
Yeah.
And I would have students come in the summer to do projects, and a lot of the undergrads at Cornell were very smart.
Yeah.
But it was amazing how little they were able to think outside of just passing the tests.
Yeah.
And just being around him for 5 years was really phenomenal. I remember one weekend I was out on a 100K bike ride, and you have a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
And I thought of this grandiose experiment, and I thought it was the bomb. And I was so excited on Monday morning. First thing, I went into his office, and I started telling him about it with great enthusiasm. And he just sat back and he was smiling. And I said, "What are you smiling about? Do you like it?" He said, "We tried that 20 years ago. It didn't work." So, point being that you cannot discount the old literature. There's a lot of people that want to say this is a 2010 paper, it's outdated. No, there's facts that just don't change. Of course, we always progress with new methodologies and techniques. In fact, this Dr. Zilversmith, he wanted to start the Journal of Negative Results to prevent people from reinventing the wheel, wasting research money.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because journals won't publish negative findings.
Only positive, yeah.
Unless it's negative about complementary or functional medicine.
Right. Supplementation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow. Wow. Okay. So then, what you've served many of us through is your position now with Dr. Stata, and how you've been looking at all metals and microbiome, and gosh, you've been looking at so much for so long. And today it was fascinating for me to hear. I'm always concentrating on lead and mercury and arsenic and cadmium and whatnot, but you were mentioning some other metals today. Can you share with people what you've been finding lately with things other than the big four?
Yeah. The one I really wanted to focus on, we've been seeing for a long time, and people just never really knew how to deal with it, and that's naturally occurring uranium. Which is an abundant element on the earth, and it does have some toxic effects. Unfortunately, we don't have any known efficient ways to get it out of the body, eliminating the source of exposure, which is typically water, and tuber vegetables that aren't cleaned well. But the other two that I didn't have time to speak about are things that we've been seeing just so much more frequently in the last, I'd say, 7 or 8 years, and that's thallium and cesium.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we just, we looked at all the industrial sources of exposure, and, you talk to a clinician in a consultation, no, this is a housewife, or this person works in an office.
Huh.
And it turns out that for both of those elements, the gas and oil industry is a huge contributor. The cesium is a very heavy, dense element that's actually added to the frac water brine.
Really?
For which there are hundreds of proprietary chemicals added. So it makes the brine very dense, so that when they pump it down into the ground,
Cracks.
it breaks open the fissures. When that happens, the gas and the oil come back, push millions of gallons. We're talking about going down 60, 70,000 feet.
Wow.
Breaking open these fissures, releasing these vast stores of oil and natural gas, pushing back millions of gallons of this frac water waste brine. So it starts out with cesium in it, and it picks up a lot of thallium from where it was. How do you dispose of millions of gallons of wastewater brine? There are legal ways and illegal ways. Unfortunately, they have both gotten heavily into the water and the soil, and there are parts of Central California where a lot of our produce comes from, where they actually had to use this so-called cleaned up frac water brine waste to irrigate crops.
Whoa.
And both thallium and cesium are single plus one charged. So none of the available chelators work for them. And you've probably heard stories about kale, maybe no longer being the superfood. It was a fantastic source of so many different nutrients. But it turns out that kale in particular is incredibly efficient at taking up that monovalent thallium.
Oh, you're kidding.
In fact, one of the references on one of my slides where I talked about thallium was from the Journal of Soil Remediation, where they go in and they plant kale where they know there's a lot of thallium in the soil, and that helps get some of the thallium out of the soil. The big question is, what do they do with that kale? I have dealt with a half a dozen cases right now, and it's also in the brassica vegetables as well, where people had extreme neurological effects, and primarily from the thallium. The ultimate telltale sign is major alopecia areata. I mean, clumps of hair will come out. You will lose all the hair on your head. Terrible, terrible neurological symptoms. And in all 6 cases where it has progressed that far, it has been in people that have been doing the wonderfully tasty green drinks or juicing every morning. One was a 6-month pregnant woman who was juicing with a half of a bag of, quote, organic spinach every morning. Her urine thallium levels were very high. She was having, I call them physical hallucinations, because she said she felt like she was walking through cobwebs.
Whoa.
And so we analyzed the spinach, that organic spinach, that who knows where it really came from. And as you know, all organic means is they didn't spray anything on it.
Right.
But it doesn't say anything about the soil.
Where they grew it, yeah.
So this whole concept of organic really needs to be evaluated, and I think a competitive edge in that industry would be to say, here's the certificate of analysis of our soil. And the scary thing, depressing thing about that case was that the thallium in this woman is readily transferred to the fetus, and then even across the placenta and even into the breast milk. So that poor child is already behind the 8 ball. So those two elements are kind of new to what we're having to deal with. A little bit of job security for the clinicians. But like I said, there's no chelators that work for them. Cesium or thallium, there's only one agent. It's called Prussian blue. It's an ion exchange resin. It's a beautiful blue crystalline structure. It does not leave the gut, but it actually binds the thallium and cesium as it comes out in the bile. So it's taken with food, and we've seen miraculous results in these people. One woman who went completely bald from lettuces that we also analyzed, and they were loaded with thallium. She got back a full, thick head of blonde hair.
Oh, you're kidding.
And then was periodically treating with the Prussian blue based on her continued neurological symptoms, some of which will never go away. It's extremely neurotoxic. It's truly a very, very heavy metal. And like you say, we've always focused on the big four because they're so common, but we've got some new challenges to face. The problem with the Prussian blue is that the government has stockpiled it for dirty bomb readiness, for radioactive thallium, cesium, and therefore the price is unbelievably high, way out of the range for most people. Activated charcoal, as you know, binds lots of toxins and toxicants in the gut, but it just doesn't cut it for thallium. The key thing is avoiding. There's one thing that my wife and I have turned to because we were eating broccoli and cabbage frequently. They also tend to accumulate a lot of thallium. And so what we went to was growing 2 good-sized crops indoors of broccoli sprouts a week. We know the source of the water. We know that the seeds are organic. I've analyzed them in the lab. They don't contain any thallium. And the wonderful thing about them is, you can't stop eating broccoli. You can't stop eating all this wonderful food. But it turns out that the broccoli sprouts are about 50 times more concentrated in all those wonderful chemicals that are found in the adult broccoli. So the broccoli sprouts are an excellent way to go and not miss out. There was actually a study published in China where they used a broccoli sprout drink, and believe it or not, they reported that they had a placebo drink. Now you tell me how you make a broccoli drink placebo that people aren't going to know the difference between. It is very foul tasting. But anyhow, it did result in very significant improvements. As you know, the sulforaphane derived from the broccoli. It's really interesting. Like it's actually a protective mechanism for the plant. So if a deer comes along or a squirrel comes along and he starts munching on the broccoli, it's a very, very bitter taste. And what happens is you have these glucoraphanins that are stored in little pockets in the broccoli. And then separately, there is an enzyme called myrosinase. And when you break the cell structure or the cell walls of the plant, the myrosinase acts on the glucoraphanins and creates sulforaphane, which upregulates the synthesis of so many cytoprotective compounds, activates gene expression of all things glutathione. It's wonderful. But yeah.
Amazing. So it sounds like this Prussian blue stuff doesn't seem to be as available. We need to avoid the sources of the thallium as much as possible. Sprouting your broccoli sprouts, you can be sure where you're getting it. Be very cautious if you don't know where your sourcing is of some of your cruciferous vegetables. What about the cesium now? What do we do about cesium?
Same thing.
Yeah.
The Prussian blue is the only agent known.
Got it.
Um,
Okay. And then what about testing? So people want to know if they have the thallium, the cesium elevated. What is their ideal test to look for these things?
The very simplest non-invasive test, the only test that I know of that's even recommended by the CDC and EPA is either a 24-hour or very highly correlated, a first morning urine void, unprovoked.
Unprovoked first morning
Unprovoked.
void urine.
Mhm.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we can look for these things. We can see if we're elevated. If we are, we can lower our exposure. Maybe we can ask our wealthy uncle for a loan so we can get some Prussian blue. And then we can eat our broccoli sprouts.
Right.
That's fantastic. Well, gosh, Dr. Quig, it's always an honor to speak with you. You always have something tucked in there that no one knows about. I can't thank you enough for everything you're always doing for everybody else. So thanks for coming.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure.